4,000 years ago. It is a small, evergreen tree, 15 to 25 feet high, which grows in the tropical forest understory, where it is protected by the shade of the larger trees. The scientific name for the kakoi plant is Theobroma, which means food for the gods. Native to the Amazon and Orinoco River basin, it requires a humid climate and regular rainfall. Small pink flowers grow directly on the trunk and older branches. The fruit, a cocoa pod, is melon-shaped and weighs roughly 1 pound when fully ripened. A mature tree may have as many as 6,000 flowers will only produce about 20 pods. Each pod contains between 20 and 60 seeds, called beans. The beans have 40 to 50% fat content, referred to as cocoa butter. Cocoa is the plant. Cocoa is the edible derivative and the primary ingredient in the chocolate. Chemical analysis of buttery vessel unearthed in Puerto Escondido, Honduras, and dating from around 3,100 years ago, show traces of compound that is found exclusively in the cocoa plant. At the time, the plant was already being used as a beverage ingredient. However, it was not the cocoa beans that were first used. Instead, the first cacao-based drink was probably produced by the fermenting the pulp in the cacao pods to yield a beer-like beverage. Researchers speculate that the chocolate drink made from the cacao beans and known later throughout Mesoamerica may have arisen as an accidental byproduct of the brewing process. In all, then small, beautifully crafted drinking vessels were found at the Puerto Escondido site, suggesting that even the cacao brew was not consumed on a frequent basis but was reserved for important feasts for ceremonial events. The villagers of the Puerto Escondido has likely been influenced by the Great Olmec civilization, which flourished for about 800 years, beginning to 3,000 to 4,000 years ago in the southern Gulf of Mexico region. Although centered in the modern Mexican states of Tabasco and Veracruz, Olmec influence reached as far south as El Salvador and Honduras. A majority of scholars concur that the Olmec people created the first civilization in the Western Hemisphere. They built large cities with significant architecture and established commerce extending over hundreds of miles. Relatively little is known about Olmec society because very little archaeological evidence has survived the damp climate of the Gulf of Mexico. Which is known, however, is that later Mayan people who did leave behind a great deal of cultural evidence, based much more of their high culture on earlier Olmec tradition. Mayan civilization flourished in the southern Mexico and Central America from around 500 BCE to around 100 1500, and the word cacao comes from the Mayan word cacao. However, this is not native Mayan word, but it is derived from the Olmec language. To the Mayan, the cacao pod symbolized life and fertility. Many of the bas-reliefs carved on the places and temples show cacao pods. It is believed that the Mayan took the cacao tree from its native rainforest and began to cultivate it in a plantation. After harvesting the seed pods, they scoop out the contents, the cocoa bean, embed in a sticky white flesh, and allow it to ferment until the seed turn dark brown. The sheets were then roasted and ground into a thick chocolate paste. From that paste, the Mayan made a hot chocolate drink. However, it was very different from contemporary hot chocolate. The basic drink was made by mixing the paste with water, chili powder, cornmeal, and other ingredients and heat it. Then the liquid was poured back and forth from the one vessel head at the arm height to another resting on the ground. This created a chocolate drink with a thick head of dark foam, considered the best part of the drink. Among the Magians, as the chocolate drink grew more popular and the ingredients were more readily available, people from all levels of society enjoyed it at least on occasion. The Maya preserved their knowledge of cacao use through some carving, some in jade and obsidian, pottery, decoration, and written document that detail the use of cacao, described in Mayan as food of the gods. Cacao was detailed used in ceremony, medical treatment, and daily life centuries before the discovery of the New World of the European. Certain recipes for cacao drinks included vanilla, nuts, honey from native bees, and various flowers. Egg Chak, meaning black star in Yucatec Maya, was the patron god of the merchant and commerce. Because cacao seeds were light in the weight, easily transported, and of great value, they were used as currency throughout Mesoamerica. Thus, Egg Choa also became the patron god of cacao. Each April, the Maya had a festival of honor to this deity. This celebration included offering of cacao, feathers, and increase. The sacrifice of a dog with cacao color marking other terminal sacrifices and an exchange of gift. Given that the chocolate drink milk would be made only through the direction destruction of the currency, one can understand why it was called the food of God. The immortal could easily afford it because for a human it was precious commodity indeed. Okay. And a hook wire and food that could most easily be retrieved with a hook wire. When Abba flew away with the hook wire, Betty bent the straight wire and successfully lifted the bucket of food with her hook. The researchers then set out to see whether they could get Betty to replace the behavior. 10 times they set out a single straight wire and food to be retrieved. Betty retrieved the food 90 times by bending the wire. Once she managed to retrieve the food with the straight wire. Alex Kajalnik, one of the researchers who worked with the crowd, noted that she had solved a new problem by doing something she had never done before. Professor John Marsloff at the University of Washington in Seattle demonstrated another interesting ability in America Cross, recognizing faces of individual humans. In 2005, he and other researchers each wore a caveman mask when they captured tag and then released crow on campus. Then Marsloff and other researchers took turns wearing the mask and walking around campus. Over time, increasing number of crow flocked together and cawed at anyone wearing the caveman mask, regardless of the size, gender, and skin color of the mask, whether of the wearer was. When the same people did not wear the mask, they got no reaction for the crowds. This showed that it was clearly the face that was identified as threat to the flock. Crows that had not originally been captured were joining the harassment of perceived threat. When Maslow suggested that researchers try wearing the caveman upside down, some crows actually turned their head upside down to better identify the space. In their studies, Western Scrub published Science in May 2006. Johan Daly, Nathan Emery, and Nicola Clayton show that jays have the ability to remember whether a specific other jay saw them hide food for later use. When it became clear that a jay that observed the hiding might have access to the cache, the hiders retrieved their food and reheat it when given the opportunity to do so without observation. They did not rehide food when other jay were introduced to this situation. Similarly, ravens in the wild have been observed misleading other ravens by pretending to hide food in the one location, then flying off to hide it elsewhere when the other raven goes to investigate false cache. Corvids are also capable of fooling humans. Maslow tells the people of pair of crows that built a fake nest that they always flew to when researchers were in their area. The crow's actual nest with their young was nearby, but the human never saw the actual actually fly to it. In an experiment to test social cooperation in rooks, University of Cambridge researchers found that pairs of rooks quickly figure out how to pull a rock at the same time to bring food that could not be gained through the individual effort of one cook. Otto Kohler tested the ability of captive chalkdown to count, a skill apparently related to their communication, often being based on the number of skulls. First, Kohler trained chalkdown to expect 5 food rewards. Then the chalkdown were given a number of boxes, some of which contained food. They proceeded to open the boxes until they had found 5 pieces of food, at which point do they stop opening boxes because they knew that they had reached 5. In another experiment, Kohler also trained chalkdowns to choose box with the same number on dots and the lid as the number of dots on a cue card. Tool maker, tricker, cooperator, mathematician, and corvid are far from the bird brain. In fact, their intelligence in many cases appears to occur or even surpass the many of our primate cousins. Okay, thank you guys for listening. For the reading passage, I hope that you can enjoy it. Thank you. God bless you.